Hey y'all, it's Father's Day today, and since I am an inveterate cinephile, an incorrigible cinephile, and since I just can't stop and won't stop being a cinephile, I wanted to talk about some movies today that are about fatherhood. And what I felt specifically drawn to talking about are three not so well known movies that I've talked about before. I think I've actually done videos about at least two of the three movies that I'm going to discuss here. But these movies appeal to me for several reasons. Um, as y'all know, I have a son and a daughter, and I love both my son and my daughter to the moon and back, as the saying goes. These movies, in particular, focus on a loving relationship between a father and a daughter, but it's a loving relationship in the context of the father being somebody who has a difficult time in the world. The father being somebody who feels himself to be alienated from the world around him. Um, and I'm drawn to these movies for obvious reasons, but I mean, since being able to relate. But I think there's something that, as I said, father's daughters and father's sons. It's not like I have a preference between uh, one or the other. But I think what makes me want to talk about these movies is we hear a lot. There are a lot of portrayals, it seems like, of fathers uh, as being scary, as being abusive, or just being distant and hard to talk to, and I don't know, just uh, not emotionally available, and so forth and so on. That seems to be it's par for the course. It's part of the world that we're living in. It's part of the misandry that's standard today, unfortunately. And I think that let me just begin by saying maybe the reason why I'm focusing on movies about fathers and daughters is that for any young men out there, and I think I've said this before, but any young men out there, if you're looking, if you want to wife somebody up, I know it's rough out there. Believe me, I know, I understand, but there are no hard and fast criteria as to finding somebody who would make a worthy wife. But I think a good indication, not a perfect one, but a good indication of somebody who will make a good wife is look at their relationship with their fathers. Do they love their fathers? Are they crazy about their fathers? Are they do they feel affectionately towards their fathers or not? There's a lot of girls who are mad at their dads, and probably some of them for good reasons. I mean, I want to be fair here, but regardless of the reasons or whether they're good or bad, I tend to suspect that girls who have a rough have had a rough go, a rough relationship with their fathers, you know, are probably more likely to become man haters in general, and to sort of take out their you know perhaps justified complaints about their father and take it out against men in general. Now, this isn't true of all women either, so I want to be careful here what I'm saying. I know there are women who have had tough relationships with their fathers, but who have turned out well and who would make good wives. But I'm just saying, It's not a perfect indicator, but it's uh, one point in the gestalt that I think is good to look for. I think if a girl loves her dad, it's even if she calls herself a feminist, even if she thinks of herself as a feminist, it's going to be hard for her to really just go, full fledged misandrist feminist. Third wave, fourth wave, anti male feminist. It's going to be hard. It's hard to do that if you're a girl who grew up and your dad, was somebody that you loved. So there you go. So these are movies again about relationships between fathers and daughters, where the father is is a good father, or in one case a flawed father, but still a loving father in his own way. But and yet they're in a difficult position vis-a-vis the world and their place in it. Um, and the first one I want to talk about is a movie from around was it 2019 or so? I believe it was around that time period. Maybe it was a little bit earlier, 2017. And that movie is called Leave No Trace. This one, I think, of the three that I'm going to talk about, is the best cinematic experience. This is the best of these three movies. I think they're all good, but this one is especially compelling. And the premise is you've got a father who we eventually learned was an Iraq War veteran, who's now living off the grid with his daughter, and they're living basically out of a tent. They're foraging, they're growing vegetables and hunting game, and just surviving in the wilderness together, and they're doing well. There's it's not a problem. It's not like he's you don't get the impression that he's forced her to do this, or that she's unhappy and wants to see wants to get back to civilization, but he's insisting that she stay here with him. There's nothing at all like that. They have a very as I've said, very there's a strong understanding between father and daughter. It's not clear what happened to the mother in this situation, or at least I'm not remembering, but I do know that she's absent, whether she's dead or whether she's absent for some other reason. Uh, I can't remember quite so well. So they're living in the wilderness in some national park in the Pacific Northwest. But eventually they get found, and they're told they can't live this way. They're not allowed to be there, and so they're taken back to quote unquote civilization, and and sort of forced to live the lives of regular people. Um, and I won't talk too much about the plot. I don't think the details of the plot are interesting, but that's not really what I want to dwell on here. There's there gets to be a difference between father and daughter. The daughter is a little more interested in, or a little more open to the idea of living in the world, apart from the wilderness, whereas the father just doesn't want to be there. And we find out later, it's never explained, in any kind of pat sort of way. But we find out later that he was an Iraq War veteran, and that caused him to reevaluate a lot of things, the way things went down during his tour of duty. Um, so I described this movie before, as Rambo without the violence. And when I say Rambo, I'm talking about I mean First Blood, the first Rambo movie, the one where he's where he's in the wilderness, just sort of wanting to be left alone, and some group of mean police decide to start harassing him because they think he's just a drifter, and then he gets violent revenge on them in the wilderness. Here, there's no violent revenge, but we do see the same kind of struggle. And except here, there's a daughter. So the father and the daughter in this movie again, don't entirely see eye to eye, but ultimately, each of them has a decision to make. And I think the way this movie ends is both a little sad and also hopeful. There's no death. I'll say that. I'll spoil that much. But in any case, we see this bond between father and daughter that's a very enduring one, and it's good to see, and it's moving to watch. All right, second movie I want to talk about is a movie called Acid Man. This was more recent, and I think I've talked about this one before. Thomas Hayden Church is the father. He's a man now in his 60s. And he used to work as an engineer, I believe, but he and his wife had a fairly acrimonious divorce. And he, I think partly because of his difficulty, his frustrations with the world, frustrations with society, and so forth. And so now he's kind of out again in the Pacific Northwest, roughing it, living out of a trailer, and you can imagine just a man living by himself in a trailer. There's not the interior, a thoroughly heterosexual man living out in the wilderness in a trailer. There's not the interior design is not is fairly spare and Spartan. But his daughter, who's a grown woman now, I think close to 30, comes out to visit him, and at first there's some distance between them because it's been a while, and because they've been estranged just because after the divorce, the father sort of said to her and her brother, you're both grown up now, so you don't need me in your life anymore. And he went away, which I don't condone him doing that, by the way, but and I can understand her being angry about that, because your duty towards your children never ends. It changes, and it's not the same as what it is when they're little kids, or when they're adolescents, or when they're teenagers. But you still have to be around for them in some capacity or other. So she has her reasons for going out to visit him, and he's again somebody who's just fed up with humanity, and he sees something in the sky that he thinks are aliens, and he believes that they're sending out signals, and he might just be a little nuts. He's not totally off his rocker, but he might be delusional about this, or he might actually be noticing something. But during the time when she visits him, they reconnect, and it ends up being a very touching and poignant look at a father and daughter's relationship. All right, and the last movie I want to talk about, this one came out in 2022. It's called After Sun. That's after AFTER Sun, SUN, all one word, After Sun. This is the most unusual of the three. And if you're not into artsy movies, this is probably not a movie for you, because there's some downtime. It's not linear, and so forth. So some people might get really impatient with this movie. But in any case, what it seems to be about on the surface is a father who's divorced from the mother, but still very loving towards the daughter that they both have together. Um, the father and daughter have gone to this resort, I believe in Spain, just to spend time together, um, for a couple of weeks. When the daughter is, I think, around 10 or 11, somewhere around there, uh, and they have a very strong connection, a strong bond. That they get along really well, but there's something amiss with the dad. There's something wrong, something going on with him. And what we find out later is that he suffers from from depression of some kind, uh, due to a variety of things, due to at least partly his own childhood. He makes certain vague allusions to his childhood and his parents not being great parents. But he's, we see him, some scenes where they're together, and he's very attendant to her and affectionate towards her, and concerned about her, and also loving towards her. So he's a great father. But what we notice in scenes where he's alone, where she's gone to hang out with some of the kids at the resort, and he's off by himself, that he seems a little emotionally erratic, and the whole story is told. It seems like, from what can be discerned, the whole story is told from the girl's point of view, as an older person looking back, and she's now struggling with some of the things that her father struggled with. So there's some possibility that it was genetic. But as a little girl, she seems basically, really really happy, and just adores her dad, and he's a great dad. So there's something kind of poignant and a little heartbreaking, but not overly so, not in an emotionally manipulative way, which I really hate. Emotional manipulation, as I've said before, in movies or in art of any kind. So so we understand what this man struggled with, what he had to deal with, because of course he doesn't want to. You can't, if you're sad, if you're depressed, if you're having a difficult time, if you're struggling, you don't want to. You can't make your kid a part of that. Um, so he's still, when they're hanging out together, when they're interacting, he's very fun and lively, and things, but we see more of what's really going on with him, and the suggestion is that he kills himself. So, and she's looking back on, a short time after their vacation together. So that's a little bit heavy. I guess that's a kind of a spoiler, but I think you can enjoy the movie knowing that. I don't think it's something that makes it so that you can't enjoy the movie or can't appreciate the movie. So those are three movies. These are three Father's Day movie picks for you to check out. First of all, number one would be Leave No Trace, the best of these three, uh, um, and Acid Man, and After Sun. And again, with After Sun, just don't watch it if you're not if you don't like movies that have stuff like downtime and, I don't know, unusual camera angles, and that aren't really fast paced, or aren't conventionally paced. Um, anyway, those are my three movies, my three Father's Day movies, three great father daughter films. So happy Father's Day to everyone out there who is a dad, and thanks for watching.